desire of your heart that you have not said out loud. Hey there, I'm Danielle Zapchenk, and thanks for joining me today on the Parable Podcast. I'd love for you to meet my new friend, creator of Every Little Seed magazine and creative coach, Courtney Kendall. She shares about how the power of words had an impact on how she saw herself.
I have been invited to some speaking spots that I feel very inadequate for, and that is a lie from the devil. I think it shows up probably all the time in different areas. It's something that we have to keep speaking truth over with just time with the Lord of, okay, you have me in these leadership roles. Am I a good leader? Like, Lord, help. So I think there's some of those things that we have to just look to other women of God and God himself and say, like, what is true here?
Here's my conversation with Courtney Kendall. I'm thrilled to introduce you to someone that I've actually met prior to recording today, Courtney Kendall. Courtney, welcome to the Parable Podcast.
Hi, thank you so much for having me, Danielle. It's awesome to be here.
Courtney, we went through a mutual friend, just kind of getting to know each other a couple months ago. So this is lovely. Yeah. You are in Colorado. Haven't been there since I was probably 6 years old. No, okay. I take that back. I was there in my 20s, but I do love Colorado. I love Boulder area. That was so fun. Like anytime you can walk in a street and like eat food at the same time is a blast.
So we're just about 45 minutes north of there-ish. I'm in Fort Collins, Colorado, and we have this beautiful downtown where you can do that. There's shops, there's good food, there's good coffee. So don't wait another 20 years. Yeah.
I won't wait another 20 years. Okay. So have you always lived in the Colorado area?
For the most part. I was born in Cheyenne and then grew up, went to Casper for a hot minute, grew up in Greeley and then North Denver, but I've been in Fort Collins now this is my quarter century, 25 years here. So it's all, I guess I'll stay.
You had your coffee with you. It looked delicious.
True.
Are you a professional barista? Because it had foam on it, all the things.
Thank you for noticing. Yeah, so I do have some barista skills from back in the day, but now we just drink a lot of coffee here. My husband just got back from Portland and I was teasing. I was like, don't come home unless that suitcase is full of good beans. And he did not miss. So yeah, I do love coffee. Here in town, Bendel's my favorite. We have Breadfellow. Oh, they're crushing it. Lima. Okay. Sorry, we could just do a coffee podcast.
I think if I could have just like time to just go to every new coffee place, sample some coffee, have conversations with people, that's my dream. I love it so much.
Yep.
All right. Well, besides coffee, Courtney, what is something that you are passionate about? I know that you have a magazine, but I know there's probably so much more.
Yes. Well, I'm passionate about art. I love that. Love Jesus. I have recently become passionate about bunny rabbits. We accidentally acquired one. My friend had one and she's like, oh, it's not working out. And I was like, well, we'll keep it for a few days, the foster for a few days. Well, I have 3 daughters. And me, like, no one's getting rid of this rabbit. I feel like my friend betrayed me a little bit, but I've started really enjoying this little fuzzy thing. So I wouldn't go all the way to pure passion, but I do find her interesting.
Yeah. Okay. So, is she like really big or is she just like in the palm of your hand?
No, she's a Dutch rabbit. We've had her for a couple. She's black and white, beautiful stripes. I should have brought her with me. You know those things in life that you didn't know I had no clue. I was actually afraid of bunnies. And then all of a sudden I was like, oh, she's fun and quiet. And it's been a pleasant little surprise in my life. How about that?
Yeah.
Deep passion though. Really love gathering women, building community, using creativity to do that. And Jesus is always in the center of it. So coffee, bunnies, Jesus, creativity. I mean,
oh my gosh. I love that. I have a friend who is petrified of anything that hops. She thinks it's like of the devil.
Yeah, feels fair, actually.
Frogs. I know my son hates frogs right now, but I love that you like were freaked out about bunnies. Is there like something that happened in your life that you were scared? Did it bite you or something?
No. Well, this one has bit me before, but I don't know. I was just never never exposed to any type of, like, mice do the same thing, rodents in general. I'm like, no. And then the kids are like, why would you be afraid of this? Because we knew these people beforehand. So they hand me this tiny little bunny. I'm like, I don't know why I'm so scared of something that can fit in the cup of my hand. But then I don't know. I just decided to get over it. There's something mentally, if you can just say, actually, I'm not going to be scared of that anymore. I don't know. Often you can just get over it. So she fell in that category. And now I'm talking about her on a podcast. So
our kids are just always trying to get us to have a dog. And I just remind my husband and our 2 kids are allergic to dogs. Like, I know you can get hypoallergenic animals, but I'm just like, I'm the person that's going to have to take care of this dog. But
that's just one more thing to keep alive.
Exactly. I can only keep succulents alive. So
good job.
That's okay, Courtney, you said you're a creative person. What is like your favorite medium to work with, and what is your least favorite?
I think most creative people are like this. They have 8 that they kind of cycle through. So right now I'm enjoying gouache paint and acrylics.
Okay.
But then I'm also enjoying layering over the top of them using pastels and these different like crayons and kind of adding some new depth to it. So that's what I'm currently into. I guess I'm currently into layering anything. But I love pottery. I'm not very good at throwing anything, but it's very peaceful to me. I find it to be a relaxing activity, but it's so time consuming. I'm not doing any pottery classes right now, but that's up there. Least favorite. I'm actually not very gifted at drawing realistically. And so I find it frustrating, even though a lot of the things I'm drawing, they're very whimsical and they're kind of just from my imagination. So I get around it I enjoy drawing, but I don't enjoy drawing realistically. But that is a goal I have, is to learn how to draw more intentionally, especially figures, people. Good grief. Mine never look quite right. But that's okay.
I understand that. You know, for some people to like make a hobby or to spend some time in a creative process, that can be really challenging because we all have things to do. We have bunny rabbits to take care of. Okay?
That's right.
So
Big days.
how do you carve out time for that? And has that been a process of learning and understanding how to do that for yourself?
Actually, great question. Because a lot of what we're doing for work is creative. So I do get asked this frequently. It started with just saying that this is a priority in my life. This is something that I want to do. And I teach creative coaching as well. And we call it go eat pie. Like, go spend some time doing something that you really love for 15 minutes a day. It doesn't have to be lengthy. It doesn't have to be good even, but just get into it, because we do tend to skip over some of the things that are most important in our life. And for me, creativity is a way that I process. It's a way that I talk to the Lord a lot when I'm making things. It's just quiet headspace, helps me just move through my life in a healthy manner. And so I have to carve out time for it, but it is so easy to bump it and do less important things. And so I've just taught myself. I have an alarm that actually goes off when I get out of rhythm with it. I set an alarm at noon that says, go eat pie. So during my lunch break, I'll pull out the watercolors or do something. So
I need to do that more. Well, actually, you had recently sent me one of your magazines and there was a doodle option. Like you could do that. And so that was super fun for me. I did that over lunch and also during like Lent season of just spending a little bit of creative time, because I like doing that. You're right. I just like shove it off. And so I think people can resonate with that. All right.
Well, Courtney, you enjoyed that.
Courtney, we love stories. I think for me, that's a way that I connect with people. I understand what they're going through, or maybe a piece of their life that maybe I've never really understood or maybe even walked through. So I'd love for you to be able to share with us one of your parable stories and learn from you today.
This has been really fun to think about because when we reflect on what God has done in our stories, I think it's that sweet reminder. It opens our eyes up to all the other stories that He's been using all along the way. And so thank you for the invitation to do this. I was praying about it and I was like, Lord, what is there? And I was reminded of the the power of our words is what came to mind. But I had a friend who he was, I want to say the creative director or something at our church. And this was years and years ago. It could be almost 10 years ago at this point. And his name was Casey. And at the time I was teaching myself graphic design and teaching myself art and just all sorts of different things, surface pattern design. I was just in the throes of learning it behind the scenes. And he had seen some of my work, I forget where, and invited me to come and do some of the drawings for one of our church galas that we were having. And so I was like, sure, yeah, I'll come and do it. And so he gives me this idea of what they need. And I started making it and loved doing it, created this fun drawing. And then I give it to him and he's like, hey, do you know how to turn this into a repeating pattern? I was like, yeah, I do. Because that's what surface pattern design is, just all the patterns that you see on anything. Like wallpaper is a great example, an easy example. I had been teaching myself that. And I was like, well, actually, I do know how to do that. So then I turned it into that. And then he ended up making it into these giant rolls of tablecloths. And so I get to the gala and my artwork is everywhere. Like, it's on placemats, it's on the wall, it's going home with every single, because it was a thank you dinner, it's going home as an award for every single person. It's in a frame with like this artwork on it. And I just stood there and I was flabbergasted that he had invited me into this space. And I mean, they spent substantial money on this as a thank you for their volunteers. And this is something I would have never got to see come to fruition without him inviting me into that space. And so then call it, I don't know, a month later, you know, he asks me for something else. And I said, Casey, I've got to tell you, I'm not a real designer. Like, he kept asking me for these things. And I was like, I'm not actually a real designer. I'm just self-taught here. And he's like, well, wait, who's telling you you're not a real designer? And I was like, well, you know, my files are messy and I don't know how you're supposed to do things. And I'm just kind of faking it till I make it. And he goes, no, but who's telling you that you're not a real designer? And I was like, well, I guess I am. And he told me, he was like, well, you are one and you need to stop lying to yourself and you're a good designer. And I need you to come and help me with these things. And so it was this pivotal point, his words, he could see something in me that I didn't believe yet and I didn't know was true. And now when you fast forward all this time to my career now at Every Little Seed, having this creative magazine where this is what we're making and doing and we're using it for God's glory, I just think how cool it was that Casey took the time to say, actually, I see this in you and I'm calling it out in you and it's powerful. And so, yeah, as I was thinking about it in scripture, even we see that over and over again where the person standing there doesn't know it. Even King Saul, before he does all of his terrible things, you see Samuel, Saul's out looking for donkeys. Like, he's not even planning to be anointed by Samuel, wanders in. And then Samuel says, like, actually, you are the future king. I see this in you. God's told me this about you. And then to see Saul's life change so drastically, just because, you know, God was obviously working all things there. But to just see how Samuel enters in that, and actually even the servant that was traveling with Saul even had this, like, hey, we should go see the man of God. And then, because Saul was ready to go home. Saul was ready to quit looking for the donkeys and just go home. And so I just think of how impactful that is. That other people are around us saying, like, actually, let's go seek God's face in this. What is God doing with you? And it's easy to see in each other, you know, but I think it's important to remember to call that out in each other. And so now what we're doing with Every Little Seed, we're inviting artists and we're inviting authors to come into that space. And I see it over and over and over again. People are like, well, you know, I just do this for fun. I just do the 15 minutes a day thing, you know? And I'm like, but actually you have something to say. You have something to make that points back to our Creator. And it's so fun that we get to co-create with God and be a part of somebody else's story. Like, Casey doesn't have any idea that, call it 10 years later, I'm sitting here talking about this. You know, it didn't mean anything maybe to him, but it changed a big part of something in my heart. Something in my heart shifted, you know, that pivot.
Yeah.
So.
I love that, Courtney. I have a similar story where I just shared this with somebody the other day. When I first started speaking at our church, I was a mom. Well, I am a mom now, still am.
Yeah,
but I was a young mom. changing diapers, and our pastor said, "Hey, would you be open to speaking sometime?" And I'm like, "Okay, well, I'm going to need about 6 months to prepare for such a thing." I was so grateful. I didn't understand it, but he saw something in me, and gosh, that has just been encouraged and like blossomed through the last 10 years. I think that's so helpful for people like Casey, and I'd be interested to know, like, now what happened to Casey to help him encourage that into you, and just to even know the impact that he's had on your life. And just in that moment, I just can imagine when you were walking into that room and just seeing everything, just to have that just like initial impact, to visually see it. How special.
Yeah, really. I mean, I walked in and I just thought, it's like tears filled my eyes. I can still pull out the placemat and still get teary eyed about it, because I was in the same space. I was a young mom and felt inadequate. I mean, you know, we never think like, look at what I'm making, you know? And so for him to just be like, this is great. Come along. Like, let's get you start doing this together. So it has opened so many doors for me over the years that I just think, wow, the power of his words. Because look what you're doing right now. One person saying like, hey, have you thought, you weren't at home saying, oh, I think I'm going to go and offer to speak.
No.
Like, no. So it's great.
Yeah. I would be interested to know, you felt that in that moment of like, hey, like, I'm not a real designer.
Yeah.
Was that a quick shift overnight? Or then from that point on, was this a gradual increase of confidence and realization of like, I'm self-taught, but I am a designer. Like, that's within me.
It was gradual for sure. Just kind of those little moments, those little seeds that are planted where you think, is that true? Like, oh, okay, maybe. And then to be invited into another space and another, you know, just kind of like, oh, okay, maybe this is true. And actually, I get to work with a team of women called the Art Department for the magazine. And the other day we were reading birthday blessings to each other. And it was crazy to hear how one person's sitting there and then 3 people on the team will read a similar thought, because it is what we see in them, God in them, you know?
Yeah.
And so I guess to your question, no, it wasn't an overnight pivot, but then there was just these little touches that just kept going along the way. And even now, there's a gal on my team who has worked for a well-known publisher, knows 5,000 times more than I do about how to do any of the back end stuff. And so even in this moment, there's still insecurities. Actually, that's not fair. I just am like, sorry, my files are bad, but she doesn't make me feel bad in any way. But just that, like, I'm still growing in it. I'm still saying like, okay, yeah, this is what God's making me to do. And look what we're getting to create. And the people that he has brought along the way it's remarkable.
Is there anything right now in your life that you're like, this isn't a part of who I am right now? Is there like that voice in your head that says, in this season, bunny breeder, what have you?
That's right.
Is there a voice saying like, I don't know if I'm this?
I have been invited to some speaking spots that I feel very inadequate for. And that is a lie from the devil. I think there's these spots that really could be a good place for me to be, but they're terrifying, you know? And then to have other people say, yeah, come do that, feels like, me? Really? You want me to come? So that feels like one. You know, I think it shows up probably all the time in different areas. It's something that we have to keep speaking truth over with just time with the Lord of, okay, you have me in these leadership roles. Am I a good leader? Like, Lord, help, you know? So I think there's some of those things that we have to just, look to other women of God and God himself and say like, what is true here? And so, I'd say that's probably 2 areas that feel vulnerable, I suppose.
To encourage the person listening to help dismantle that idea, what would be something that you would either like tips, encouragement? You kind of said one of just like hearing from other people to help push past that.
I don't want this to feel like a formula, but one of the things I do is I get up every single morning and I meet with Jesus and I write down what is my deepest desire. And I lay that out really quick at the foot of the cross and say, what am I worried about? What am I coming into this day with? And then I allow a response to come of what I think the Lord is sharing back with me. And sometimes that is really, really, really tender. And then there's other times that I would say the Lord has been quick to say that's a lie and it's time for you to dust your shoes off and walk away from that. And so I try to just hold on to that. And the big ones, the big things that I argue with myself a lot, the lies that I could tell myself a lot, I write those out of what God's actually saying is true. And in those moments, no joke, I go back and I read them out loud to myself. Here's a doozy right here. Like it is what the Lord is saying is true. And they're strong language, not like it's, you no longer need to fret about this. I have it covered. These words of, girl, I've got you. And so I dump a lot of stuff there and just say, Lord, what do you want me to do with this? And what's true? But in the moments, it's when midday, when I'm not, in my cozy jammies, talking to Jesus with my journal and my coffee in the throes of the real life day, it's helpful to have it written out because it's re-wallpapering my mind to say, this is the truth. Yeah. This is what's true. And so I don't know, that's one way to kind of attack it.
I would agree with that. Yeah, just to being reminded, either if obviously time with God, the people that surround us, and also voicing it, because I think when we let it fester and hang out in our head, that's when it gets real scary.
Yeah, you're right.
I do that quite a bit with myself, but also I can see my daughter's wheels turning in a certain way, and she's very similar to me, and I'll just be like, are you thinking this? And now that could be discernment, but it is really just I think like you, and I just happen to be 20 plus years older than you. So here's the truth. But then at the same time, God's just hey, you think that way too. Even though you're saying that about her, I know that that's your heart.
People around you are really, really important.
Yeah.
Because that's who you turn into is the people surrounding you. And so do you have a tip on that?
Well, yeah, I guess that would just the people surrounding you, writing it out too is super helpful. Yeah. And finding those promises and those truths within the Bible and speaking that back to yourself. God is a God of amen and promises over and over again in the Bible. Yeah. And so that is where, if he can do that, why would you believe anything less? And usually if there is negativity, shame, a lie, something that's making me feel ashamed about myself, that wouldn't be of God to begin with.
That's not the voice of God. Nope.
Not at all. Yeah. So if I find myself in that spiral, I'm like, oh, okay. Yeah, that's not right.
This isn't true.
And also going back to the idea of the creative process, that is very helpful to me to be able to do something. And creativity goes in so many different areas. Me and my husband, we redid our basement a couple of years ago, and that was a long project. Learned a lot, but I did some hard work down there mentally.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. And you're right. Creativity does go a lot. My mom, hers is in the kitchen, and then my husband, he's a structural engineer, and his Lego projects are just better than everybody else's. So yeah, you're right.
Yeah. Okay. Well, speaking of people who lean into you, are able to talk truth, you talked about your art team. Have you always had a group of women in your life that you can go to, or is this new, specifically also in a workspace, to have a team of people, a part of Every Little Seed?
You could make me cry in 2 seconds with this question. Because I was doing Every Little Seed alone, and I'm extroverted and really love being around other people. And I was doing it alone in my studio, and I was like, Lord, I knew he had called me to do this, but I thought, you cannot expect a girl like me to be doing this by herself. And about 3 years had passed, and he just kept telling me from day one, invite other people into the space. I was hung up on, well, I can't pay them. Actually, this is funny because this goes back to what happened with Casey even. Yeah. That wasn't a paid thing. And look at what the payment, if you will, that has come from it. And so finally last fall, I asked 5 women if they would like to apply and come into Every Little Seed and just start using their gifting. And they said yes, and they did. And we meet every single week now, and they are cranking out the best issue that we are ever going to have, because it's not just me. There's all of these other women, all of their talents and all of their gifting. And we were having a meeting the other day. We've got this great article that's coming out in our next issue called Rooted. And inside of Rooted, recruited. It's called Being in the Weeds with Friends. And this gal's at our table and she's like, oh, actually, why don't I do a podcast interview and we'll just add a QR code. And then if someone's wanting to do this and this, I'm thinking like, this is so cool. This issue is going to have music in it, QR codes to go to playlists. I couldn't fathom what all God would do with that. And so they've worked this whole year to help get this one out. And so it just feels really special to have them on board. I don't want to do it without them. So
that's awesome. We'll definitely put a link in the show notes because it's just kind of fun to see how this is all connected and just to kind of know the behind the scenes. Okay. Tell us a little bit about like the heart of Every Little Seed. Where does the name even come from?
Well, years and years ago, I was feeling pretty frenetic, just lots of producing, lots of running, lots of fatigue, and felt the Lord just calling me to the woods, saying like, come on, let's just come up here and talk to me. Like, come on. And when I say the woods, I live in Fort Collins. So I was just going up to Laurie State Park, it's 15 minutes outside of town, but it's a deep breath of fresh air right up there. There's a lake. And so I'd go sit up there a couple times a week and just pray and say like, Lord, what do you desire? And I could feel my blood pressure coming down and I could feel the need to be more and to produce more and, going away. I was actually like, no, the only thing I really desire is your heart. I desire to sit with you. I desire to be with you. So from there, I started inviting other women into that space with me. And then they'd get up there and it's a little weird at first. If you're not used to sitting in silence and solitude, it is awkward. You're like, well, now what do I do with my hands? Like, I just sit here. Okay. So I started making them little journal prompts that were illustrated that were just maybe a scripture and one question or small things. And unbeknownst to me, that was the beginning of the magazine, just these pages of reflection and, just some story and some illustrations, making it pretty. And then from there, it started this small magazine. And originally it was called Unplugged. And then that wasn't quite right. And my daughter said, what about Every Little Seed? And I thought, that's it. It's every little thing every little seed that God's planting in your life, every little thing that he's doing. We can see him working in all of it. And we can look for him. If we have eyes that are seeking to see his awe and his wonder, it's all around us. There's like little glimpses of that all over. And so the name came, and then it was starting to tell the stories of how people were seeing God and what he was doing, the seeds he was planting and the things that he was moving in. And so then I opened it up for contributors, and then people just start submitting their writing and then their artwork. And it has just slowly grown over the years. So it's kind of the origin story, I guess. But
you said you thought you weren't a designer, but there's this creative process in you. I mean, looking back now, when you think about that moment, walking to that room, and to now know that you have a magazine of creative things, what is like the most special part of like that accomplishment feeling, or to know like how God has like taught you through that? I
have been floored at his faithfulness. So when I said I was up there praying all those years ago, there have been a few things like at that time when I was praying, I thought I had this idea to make this magazine, and that women would be coming and going, helping, making it. And it was out of this barn structure. And about a month ago, a woman called me out of the blue, and she was like, hey, I have this 5,000 square foot barn. Would you like to use it for art retreats and workshops? And I just think like his faithfulness, he showed me these things ahead of time. And then I was shaking in my boots, like, how am I going to do this? How is this even possible? And then to just say like, okay, Lord, I can take that one step and I can take this other next step. Then for him to then provide a space and to provide a team, and everything has been provided for. Nothing that I have done in any way. And to think, wow, you're going to use a girl like me who is insecure in some ways and, not equipped and like, don't feel like I could possibly be a sinner like me. You're going to use a girl like me and say, come on, let's go do this together. And that feels jaw dropping. That feels like, really? Thank you, Lord. And actually tore up a car tire and had to get it replaced. And had it not happened, I wouldn't have been where I was at. I was at an appointment and I was headed to go look at this barn for the first time. And it actually Googled me to go the long back way past the lake where I had been praying all those years ago and then go beyond it just a little ways to the barn. And I just cried the whole way there. I was like, you're just parading me past all the things that you've promised all along the way.
Yeah.
And it's taken time. I mean, this is years and years in the making. Mm-hmm. I was just reminded in that moment of like, he's not going to let you down. You know, if he says it's happening, things are happening. And so I don't know, it's been faith building. That feels really, really faith building.
I love what you said, like how God is like, come on, let's go do this together. And I think that's just an encouragement we all need to remember, because it feels like we're on this road alone. Yeah. But the reality is, and he's right alongside us, and he keeps bringing people, teams of people, just to say like, we're going to do this, whatever that may be for you. So
I think you're right. I think sometimes we think, oh, God wants me to go do this. Now I'm off alone. Mm-hmm. And instead it's like, okay, God, let's go do it. But you're coming, because I don't have a clue what I'm doing. So, and he was never wanting us to go try to do it alone.
Courtney, if people wanted to connect with you and hear more about Every Little Seed, find out information, where is the best place for them to do that?
We have a killer video newsletter, actually, that we send. So if you go to everylittleseed.com, you can sign up there, and we send you video tutorials. There's stories of faith. It's like never boring. Mm-hmm. And I'd say that's probably the best spot. But we are on Instagram. I think the email is probably our best bet.
Well, this was a joy. Thank you so much for taking the time and chatting with us today.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It really has been cool to reflect on all the things that God's done.
I don't know about you, but I really resonated with the idea of how somebody sees something in us, but we can't see it in ourselves, especially how even God sees us as his child. I love spending time with Courtney today. I can't wait to meet her in person, but to connect with Courtney or to grab a copy of Every Little Seed, simply visit DanielleZapchenk.com for details. And here are 2 reflection questions from our time with Courtney. Number 1, what are you telling yourself right now that you can't do? And just be honest about it. All right. Number 2, write down what is your deepest desire. And just like Courtney said in her time of prayer each morning, she lays it at the foot of the cross. What would that be for you? This episode was edited by my gifted husband, Eric Zapchenk, and we hope you were encouraged to think about your own parable story. Remember, your parable showcases how God meets us in our own creativity. We'll see you back again next week on the Parable Podcast.